Like, if you like Caleb Williams that much and you think he's going over 3,000 yards and throwing over 22.5 touchdown passes, you might as well just play him at Rookie of the Year. But do you really want to bet somebody just 2-1 Rookie of the Year and tie up your money for half of a season? I really don't. That's why I went with Marvin Harrison, took some shots with other guys. But, yeah, I think Caleb Williams is going to have a monster year. What worries me a little bit is he could also use his legs, especially go back and watch year one at Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley. Like, he's super athletic. And the Bears' run game. Like, it's going to be an improved offensive line once again this year. You bring in Swift. So he probably goes over this number, but it's just not a number that I want to bet. But I am really excited for Caleb Williams. I just bet Matt Eberflus again, Coach of the Year, and Bears over 8.5 wins. And those are my only bets with Chicago. But I can't wait to see what Caleb looks like.
You know, there's a lot of conversation, and rightfully so, about the Bears and the excitement and the offseason they had and
kind of trendy.
The weapons they've added. What if Matt Eberflus is just a terrible coach and they're actually not that good? Like, nobody's talking about this.
Yeah.
Matt Eberflus, I get that he kept the locker room intact and players seemed to like him and they backed him at the end of the season. But he's a defensive-minded head coach. We've watched him fail with Justin Fields. Now, granted, that could be a Justin Fields thing. It could be a system thing. It could be a lot of different things here. But the reality of this is, if the Bears underachieve this year with now inflated expectations, Matt Eberflus is the first to go.
Oh, yeah.
The first to go.
Yeah, it's like boom or bust, right? Like, he could either be Coach of the Year if the Bears win double-digit games with a rookie quarterback, if they win that division with two teams that are projected to win over 10 games, in Green Bay and Detroit at 10.5. And then you have the ultimate wild card in Minnesota. We don't know what they're going to be, but I think he'd probably get some looks. But also, like you said, like if they finish with 5-6 wins, if they regress, if they don't at least win 7-8 games, like they did last year, he's probably out. But I actually like what Chicago did. Not that he's a lame duck coach, but bringing him back, right? Because there weren't really any sexy names that you had a realistic shot at. I don't think you could have had Harbaugh because I think Harbaugh kind of had his mindset. Maybe you could say like Mike Vrabel, but if the Bears do stink, then you can make that switch next year. You know, you can move on from Eberflus and you could get Mike Vrabel. I don't think Bill Belichick would be the answer for them, but maybe Ben Johnson. Like maybe Ben Johnson finally wants that head coaching gig and he leaves Detroit next year. You could get a better option, I feel, rather than, no offense, like you know, Dan Quinn. Like I like.
What do you mean offense? We know he's a bridge coach.
Yeah.
Dan Quinn is a bridge coach in Washington.
But at least they have Cliff Kingsbury, and I'm not talking Cliff Kingsbury, the head coach. I'm talking
offensive
Cliff, the OC, to work with Jaden.
Yeah.
You know, so you have an offensive-minded dude to run the offense and work with them, and I think that that's a perfect fit for him, as we saw in practice today when not one ball touched the ground. But, yeah, man, I don't know. I think that would be the case. If the Bears don't at least win 8 games, Eberflus is out. But bringing him back makes sense because the defense was so good second half of the season. They could legitimately be a top 10, ceiling top 5 defense. So why move on from that voice? And like you said, he kept that locker room together.
We were talking a little bit earlier in the show about Mike Clay from ESPN. He does, the projections leading into the season, and he did, obviously, rookie quarterbacks. He's got Caleb Williams coming in at a little over 3,500 passing yards and 23 touchdowns. Does that kind of feel like the season you maybe expect from Caleb Williams, all things go right?
I mean, that's fairly conservative. I mean, if the people here in Chicago are like, oh, he's gonna go for Kramer's record, like he's gonna throw for 4,000 yards. So I like that that's a little bit more conservative because what C.J. Stroud did last year was outlier type stuff. So you don't want to you don't want to act like, oh yeah, it's totally normal for a rookie to come in and completely destroy the league. Caleb's got the ability to do that, but let's see how this plays out. Like there's still some question marks about the offensive line for the Bears and the center position in particular, which is a huge thing for a young quarterback to have. So, yeah, I like that. That sounds really reasonable in a space where I'll give you an example of like where we're at. NFL on their Instagram page had Caleb throwing a ball on the run, and it was like only 2 quarterbacks in the league can make this throw. Well, it's routes on air, and like no one's rushing the quarterback. Like, what are we doing here? Like most quarterbacks can make that throw. That especially guys, it was from like rookie minicamp, and it's like, dude, most of these guys are never going to play football after this weekend.
Right.
So there is there's a level of excitement that's great, and I love to see it from a content standpoint, but you do wish people would just remember everything that they know about how football is and how difficult of a game it can be at the highest level.
I was thinking about Zay Jones, weirdly, and how he's no longer a member of the Jacksonville Jags. They cut ties with him. And I was thinking about their depth chart, their wide receiver room, and you have Christian Kirk, you have Gabe Davis now, you have Parker Washington, you have Tim Jones, but then you also have Devin Duvernay, you have Brian Thomas Jr., who I didn't really love the pick for the Jags. I thought that they should have looked to fix that secondary. Because I think Trevor Laurence will have a bounce back year. He had a down year compared to what he did 2 years ago, year one with Doug Peterson, especially the second half of the year. They won a playoff game. We thought they were the up-and-coming team. Now, you're getting like plus 250 on them just to win the division. I think it might be time to buy low on the Jags. I just don't like that defense. But with Brian Thomas, I think this is the perfect fit. So I bet him over 750.5 total receiving yards.
Okay, he's projected to go 814.
And I also bet over 4.5 touchdown receptions.
And he's at 5.
I was looking at it like with the Jags last year, even in a down year with that offense, on throws 20 or more yards down the field. They were 8th in total attempts, 79 total attempts. So Trevor Laurence likes to throw the deep ball. They were 8th in completion percentage, 49%. 5th in total yards, over 1,000 yards on throws, 20 or more yards down the field. 1st in big-time throws, 31. Like, that's not the issue with Trevor Laurence. He can make every single throw. And then if you look what Brian Thomas did at LSU on 20-plus yard throws in the FBS last season, he was 3rd in total receptions, had 15 catches over 20 yards down the field. He was 2nd in total receiving yards with 670, and he was 1st in receiving touchdowns. He had 12 touchdowns over 20 yards down the field. He's their deep threat. So I love him over 750 yards receiving, and I like the touchdowns, 4.5. I think he's going to be wide receiver number 1 for the Jags, and kind of like the Jags to go over their win total. But I really, really like those touchdowns. He's going to be the deep threat. I don't know about his route running, but I know that he's going to be, a speedster, and he's going to catch some balls.
Now, we talked about Caleb Williams, and Mike Clay's got him projected a little over 3,500 passing yards, which Laurence Holmes, who came on with us earlier, if you missed that, that's going to be on the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, preferably the Odyssey app, but it can be anywhere, as you know.
It can be Apple.
It can be Apple. That's what pays the bills for your wife, so that's totally fine. He thought that number was a little conservative given the expectations, which I think is probably a good thing because, let's be honest, the hype train is full steam ahead after C.J. Stroud season last year, now Caleb Williams and what we're seeing. Rome Odunze, Mike Clay's got him projected at 803 yards and 6 touchdowns, which would have him coming in well over his receiving yards prop at 675.5. And if you're going to look at then so there you go. And then it was on the next page. Then the touchdown receptions, 4.5 on the year, which he's got him projected at 6. So he'd be going well over both.
Yeah, I would rather take the over on the touchdowns. The only thing that scares me, the reason I'm not playing any of his props, he could be wide receiver number 1. He's awesome. I think he's wide receiver number 3 in this draft. I got him right behind Malik Neighbors. But, man, they just have so many weapons now, right? Like Keenan Allen's there. And DJ Moore had his best season as a pro, and that was with Justin Fields, who was hurt and didn't even start every single game, and Bagent or Bagent, whoever the hell the other dude was.
Yeah.
And he still had his best season as a pro, and like none of the balls were even catchable. So you have DJ Moore, you have Cole Kmet, you have this new run game now with Swift. You have Caleb Williams using his legs. Also, not a tough schedule to start off the season, but I mean, you get the Texans pretty early on. You're in a tougher division. I'd probably stay away, but I'd lean overs. I think he's going to be awesome. I just worry, how many targets is he going to get?